I thought he was my son, until I found that picture. For 14 years, I believed my son carried my blood, until the night I found an old photograph of my wife in another man's arms. That picture didn't just break my heart. It made me question whether I'd been living someone else's life all along. Hello, friends. If that opening makes your chest tighten, stay with me until the end. This is the kind of memory a man only admits out loud when the house is quiet and the porch light is the only star he can count on. If stories like this keep you company, please like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment. I read every single one. I'm 40, but some mornings my joints swear I'm older. I run a small carpentry shop 2 towns over, cabinets that open without a sigh, porch swings that don't lean, stair rails that old hands can trust. Folks around here know me as the man who can make a shelf look like it's always belonged to a wall. I like belonging. It's the closest word I have for love that sticks. We live in a brick house with a tired roof and a front yard full of hydrangeas that refuse to listen to the weather. My wife, Nora, can coax blooms out of almost anything. She talks to plants the way she talks to stray cats, soft, patient, as if they were shy friends who only need a little time to come forward. She has a laugh that lands in the room like sunlight sliding in under a blind. I've been living with that laugh for 15 years, and I am still not used to it. We met in a grocery store aisle when we were both too young to know what we didn't know. She was deciding between 2 brands of coffee like it was a life-or-death call. I reached for the cheaper one and said, "This one leaves a nicer bitterness." She grinned at me like I'd just confessed to a crime we could share. We tried the coffee together a week later. I never stopped going back. When you're with someone long enough, you develop a quiet map of their moods. The part of the day when they go silent because the world pressed too hard, the way their hands move when their brain is busy. I learned Nora's map by heart, or I thought I did. Then, a year ago, the topography changed. First, the staring. She'd drift toward the window and look out at the street like there might be a message hiding in the air. Then the sighing, small, involuntary sounds that told me her chest was carrying something it couldn't set down. And the phone, always on vibrate, always face down, always a text she read with her mouth pressed into a careful line. You get to a place in marriage where you tell yourself that seasons shift. Work stress, hormones, grief over something you forgot to count. But the mind that loves also invents monsters. Mine did. It built them out of nothing and then dressed them in the clothes of a man I could blame. The night I found the photograph, I wasn't looking for proof. I was hunting for an old extension cord I swore I'd stored in the attic 3 summers back when we bought the inflatable pool that deflated in a week and still lives, folded, under the guest bed like a broken promise. The attic is a museum of our good intentions, a crib we kept when we kept hoping. Boxes labeled winter that hide the heavy sweaters we swore we'd wear to mountain towns and never did. And a trunk. The big cedar one, the kind that keeps time and moths at bay. I knew it as the place Nora kept her scrapbooks. I also knew it as a thing she never opened when I was around. I told myself I was looking for the cord, and only the cord. But my hands, the traitors, found the trunk's lid and lifted. Inside, everything smelled like old paper and cold seasons. I dug past ribbons and postcards and the program from our church wedding, the one where our vows sounded so official, I wondered if we'd signed up for something larger than love. At the bottom was a manila envelope worn thin at the edges. My name wasn't on it. Nobody's was. Just a date from a lifetime ago in blue ink, faded to the color of a careful secret. I slid the photograph free. Nora was in it. 19 maybe. Hair in a messy bun. Eyes bright in a way that made me ache. Because there are versions of the people we love that we never get to meet. She had her arms around a man I didn't recognize. He wasn't handsome in any ordinary way. He looked like trouble you'd believe in. He looked like laughter at midnight. His cheek was pressed to Nora's, and the way her mouth tilted toward him told me this wasn't just a summer fling captured in weak flash. This was a promise someone had carved into the bark of a young tree. I put the photo back without breathing, without blinking, without making the smallest sound that might give away the fact that I had crossed a border I had no business crossing. Some doors in a house squeak because they want witnesses. I pretended I found the cord, carried something, anything down the ladder, and stood in the hallway holding a guilt that came with a heat. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Long enough for the clock to cough up the hour. Long enough for our dog to find me and tilt his head as if to ask who I thought I was. Nora was in the kitchen when I walked in, her back to me, slicing peaches for a pie. Peach season turns this whole town soft. I wish it had turned me softer that night. "Found what you needed?" she asked. "Yes," I said, and felt the wrongness of it. A small lie to escape a bigger question. It sat between us like a stone under a sheet. Our son, Eli, walked in, 16 and all angles, and cracked open the refrigerator like he was opening a window. He kissed the back of his mom's head without thinking. He nodded at me in his boy-man way and then poured a glass of milk that would make a cow faint. He smelled like grass and sweat and sweet, cheap soap. "He is the person who made me a father. He is the person I was about to lose." I didn't sleep that night. I went to the shop early and drove screws into wood until my arm was more tired than my heart. I cut a piece of maple wrong and cursed like a teenager. I drank coffee from the machine with the burnt taste. I opened a book on joinery and stared through it at the wall. And then I did what men do when we're scared we've made something up. We look for evidence that lets us sleep or makes us new. I found his name in an old alumni forum post, Isaac Rourke. The town photography club hosted a show back when Nora was at community college. His pictures were black and white and full of the kind of light that makes you forgive everything. He left for the West Coast not long after. His page went quiet 10 years back. The last photo was of a pier that looked like it could walk into the ocean and keep walking. I could have left it there, a ghost from a girlhood that wasn't mine. But the mind that loves also measures. It sets a photograph next to a face and tries to decide whether the angles match. It counts freckles. It listens for a laugh that leans the same way. The night after, Eli and I were on the porch tightening a loose baluster. He held the flashlight. I held the drill. The beam washed over his profile. His nose, not mine. His jaw, not mine. The way his hairline dips to the right, not mine. It is possible to love a person so completely that it makes you dangerous to yourself. "Dad?" he said. "Yeah?" "You ever notice how the porch sounds different after rain?" He stomped. The wood thudded, then echoed. He was right. The sound shifted, a deeper resonance, like the house was singing in a lower register. "It swells," I said. "Water moves into the grain. Wood remembers how to be a tree." He nodded like I'd handed him a secret. He is like that, hungry for the small science of things. He has my slanted grin, but on his face it's more hopeful. He has my terrible taste in old rock songs, but he makes them sound new. He is mine in ways science can't measure. He is mine in ways science can ruin. If you're still listening, thank you. Stories stretch in the middle where the ache lives. If this has you leaning in, please tap like so the platform knows to share it with folks who might need to hear it, and subscribe for the next chapter. We're just getting to the hard part. I didn't confront Nora with the photograph right away. I wanted to, but I also wanted the words to come out of me while I was still the man who vowed to be gentle, the man who promised, "I will be kind on purpose when the world is unkind by accident." It was Eli who made the moment happen, not meaning to. Saturday night, he had a fever that came fast, the kind that walks into your house like it owns the place. We took turns sitting by his bed. Around 2 a.m., he drifted into a sleep that was more like peace. I went to the kitchen for water, the way fathers in old movies go outside for air, except I didn't have a cigarette to lean on. When I turned back, Nora was in the doorway. She had her sweater over her pajamas and her hair tied up the way it used to be, and she looked so much like the girl in the photograph that my heart tried to stand up and leave the room. "Something's wrong," she said, reading me like she always has when I'm not trying to be illegible. "I found the photo," I whispered, because the house was a library with one sleeping boy for a book. She didn't ask which photo. She leaned against the frame like old wood that knows better than to pretend. "I was wondering when it would find you," she said. "I've been hiding it and not hiding it for so long I don't know which is which." I put the glass down carefully. "Who is he?" "A man I thought I'd marry," she said. "Before you?" Before I knew what the rest of my life looked like. "I don't want to hurt you with the next question," I said. "I also don't know how not to ask it." She closed her eyes. "Ask. Is Eli—" I couldn't finish. The word felt like a cliff in my mouth. Her face did a small private thing, like a window shade snapping up. "I've never known for sure," she said. "I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself the truth would ask for things I couldn't bear to give up. I told myself, you were the father, and a father is the person who stays. There are shots a man can take that drop him to his knees, and there are shots that make him stand very still because motion might break him. I stood very still. The kitchen clock chewed the second hand like gum. The refrigerator hummed like a badly tuned piano. I could hear our son's breathing down the hall. I could hear my life asking me not to throw it away. "How long have you been carrying that?" I asked. 15 years, she said. "The whole time. I wanted to tell you before our wedding, then on our first anniversary, then when Eli was born, then when—" She looked past me toward a shelf where the hospital bracelet from the pregnancy that didn't last still sits in a little frame. Every time I opened my mouth, the fear pushed back the words. "What were you afraid of?" I asked, though I knew. We are all afraid of the same door. "That you'd love me less," she said. "That you'd look at Eli differently. That everything good we had built would tear. That I would be the villain in a story I wanted so badly to be a love story." I could have been angry. God knows part of me burned. But anger is a tool you have to learn to set down if you want to build anything that lasts. "What do we do now?" I asked, because I'm a carpenter, and questions like that are how I move through a problem without breaking it. "I'll do whatever you ask," she said. "If you want a test, we do a test. If you want the truth and then distance, I'll move out. Stop," I said. "We're not tearing the house down just because a hinge squeaks." She laughed through tears. "We are so married that even your metaphors wear rings." I walked to the sink and turned off the faucet I hadn't realized I'd left running. Water had been spilling, gently, like time we couldn't get back. I put my hands on the counter and breathed the way our therapist taught us back when we invested in counseling, the way some couples invest in a new car. "I need you to hear me," I said. "I can't unknow what I know. There will be a before and an after to this night, and the line between them will ache. But Eli is my son. He calls me dad because I have been his dad. That doesn't change. Not one thing. The rest—" I swallowed. "The rest is a debt we will spend the rest of our lives paying down. You will show me the receipts of your honesty from here on. I will show you the receipts of my grace. We'll go broke sometimes. We'll overdraw. We'll fight. But I won't leave him. And I won't decide about you tonight." She put both hands over her mouth and cried silently, like a person in a pew who knows God is the only audience that matters. We stood like that, not touching, until Eli coughed in his sleep and both our bodies started forward on muscle memory. The night allowed us to be parents before it allowed us to be adversaries. In the days that followed, everything felt sharper. The way the morning light came through the curtains. The squeak in the kitchen drawer nobody but me notices. The hair tie I found on the banister with a strand of Nora's hair caught in it. A small fossil from a species of love that hadn't gone extinct. Not yet. We didn't take a DNA test. I know some of you will want to argue with me about that. I argued with myself first. But the truth is the test wouldn't have given me back anything I needed to keep. It wouldn't have made Eli more mine or less mine. It would only have assigned a number to a wound. And I don't need a lab to tell me where I hurt. Instead, we did the ordinary things that heal people in extraordinary pain. We went to work and came home and ate dinner at the table, even when we wanted to hide in rooms and become ghosts. We took a long walk the Sunday after and stopped at the park where Eli learned to ride his bike. I remembered the way he'd fallen, and then looked up at me like he had an agreement with gravity I didn't know about. I remembered thinking, this is the first person I'll love who will one day drive away without checking the rear view for my face. I remembered wanting to build a bigger world for him, with benches whenever he got tired. Nora began telling me the stories she'd kept in the cedar trunk of her throat, not all at once, in sips, the way you drink something strong so it doesn't burn a hole in you. The story of Isaac who took her picture in the campus library because he said the light wanted her. The story of how they loved in the way only young people can, believing love could stand up to any wind, even the one that blows when ambition and fear tie their shoelaces together. The story of the night he left for a job in Seattle, promising to send for her. The story of the letter that never came. Then the story of me, the coffee aisle, the cheap brew with nicer bitterness, the way she decided to do everything with me that she'd always hoped to do with the man in the photograph. Then the day Eli arrived and life's volume turned up so loud she couldn't hear the questions that would have saved us from this part of the story. Sometimes, she said one evening, I kept waiting for a moment that would make confessing feel brave instead of cruel, but I could never find it. There isn't one, I said. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't audition for the part where it doesn't hurt. We cried. We laughed at a joke Eli made about his math teacher's hair. We paid the mortgage. We mowed the lawn. We held on to each other on the nights when being two people in a bed felt like trying to share a single shoreline after a storm, wet sand sucking at our ankles. Eli tried out for varsity soccer and made it, and pretended he hadn't wanted it even as his grin gave him away. He called me from the bus on away games. He asked me for $20 and called me sir when he did, which felt like a prank carefully disguised as manners. He told me I make the best grilled cheese because I butter the outside of the bread instead of the pan. He is mine in ways neither of us have words for. On a quiet Saturday, I took him to the shop and taught him how to cut a dovetail by hand. He leaned into the wood the way you lean into a person you trust not to move. His shoulders relaxed in that particular way boys' shoulders relax when they do something they're proud of. I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to protect him from everything. I did the only thing I could. I told him the truth I could count on. You know, I said, tapping the tails with my chisel, the strength isn't in the glue, it's in the fit. He looked at the joint and then at me. Like people? Like people, I said. A month after the kitchen door opened on our secret, I found Nora on the porch holding the photograph. She had it by the edges, thumb careful not to smudge the only proof she had that she'd once belonged to a different future. I don't know what to do with this, she said. We can keep it, I offered. Like a scar we agree not to hide. Or we can burn it and choose to remember without a picture. What do you need? She looked at me the way she looked at seedlings, tender but also honest about their odds. I need to stop asking paper to tell me who I am. We walked to the grill. I set the picture in the center like a ritual neither of us had rehearsed. She struck the match. The flame took the corner first, and then the edge, And then the faces. I watched our past become smoke and realized how many times love asks us to light what we can't carry anymore. We stood there until the ash settled. She reached for my hand. I let her have it. We are new at a kind of holding that doesn't promise more than today. That night, I made dinner while Eli sat at the table doing homework, and Nora read the news aloud in small pieces that didn't set our hearts on fire. The three of us existed in the same air without anyone needing to apologize for taking up space. I know that sounds like a small thing. That night it felt like a miracle with a grocery list. After we ate, I cleared my throat. The words came out the same way sawdust settles after a cut. Gently, everywhere. "Nora," I said, "I can't promise I'll never be angry again or sad. Those feelings are part of the furniture now. But I can promise this. I will not make Eli pay rent for an argument he didn't start. And I will show up. To practices, to graduations. To the day he moves out and forgets to take his trophies. To the day he calls me from some city I haven't visited yet just to ask how to fix a cabinet hinge. I will show up because that's what fathers do." Her eyes filled. She nodded. "And I will spend the rest of my life telling the truth the first time," she said, "even when it would be easier to pay later with interest." Eli looked up from his geometry and made a face. "Are we good?" he asked. Because kids know when the air is different, even if nobody opens a window. "We're figuring it out," I said. "That's a kind of good." He shrugged. "As long as we're still doing tacos on Tuesdays." "We are," Nora said, laughing through the tears that had decided to take their time. Forgiveness gets too much credit for being a single act. I've learned it's a habit, like making the bed, like checking the locks, like the way you learn to listen for the creak in the stairs that means someone you love is home. There are still mornings when I wake before dawn and feel the old ache pressing at my ribs like a bruise that disagrees with time. There are afternoons when I see a man on the street with a face you could photograph forever, and I wonder whether the ghosts we burn ever stop smoking. There are nights when I stand in Eli's doorway watching him sleep, the way I did when he was small, and think, no lab in the world measures this. I kept the cedar trunk. We put different things in it now. Eli's cast from the summer he fell off his skateboard and we drove too fast to the urgent care, singing a stupid song to keep from crying. The napkin from the diner where Nora and I had our first breakfast after the worst week of our marriage, the waitress spelling our names wrong on the coffee cups, and all of it feeling holy anyway. A printed email from a teacher who wrote, "Eli is a generous partner in group work, which sounds small until you realize it's how cities get built. Sometimes I go up to the attic and open the trunk and take out one thing and hold it and let it teach me how to keep going. The past can be cruel. It can also be a toolbox. If you've stayed with me to this quiet part, thank you. Truly. Stories like this don't end. They soften. They make room. If anything here reminded you of your own porch light, your own cedar trunk, your own photograph you're not sure what to do with, tell me about it in the comments. And if you want more stories of love, betrayal, and the messy, ordinary saving work of choosing each other anyway, please like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. Before I go, I'll leave you with the one sentence I never thought I'd be able to say and now say to myself every morning when I tie my boots. I did not leave my son on the day I discovered I could have. I set down the weight I couldn't carry and picked up the one I could. And the porch. It still sounds different after rain. The wood swells. The house remembers how to be a tree. If you stand very still, you can hear it forgiving us.